Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review a Netflix film called The F It List. Really, you can't actually cuss in a review within the first the first minute of a video. So, yeah, I can't actually say the actual word of this title within the first minute. But, anyways, the Beep It List. Funny how you would want to just say F it, but YouTube things. So going into this movie, I like the message that it kind of has, where it's like, hey man, life goes like a million miles an hour, and this thing is telling you how about you just pump the brakes and slow down and realize what you really want in your life. They could have maybe done this a number of ways. They could have all of a sudden made this yes man, where all of a sudden one guy has to say yes to everything. Or in this movie, they could have had this guy write out a list, and then he had to do every single one of these things, or his life could have been in jeopardy, or some goofy-esh thing like Nerve, or quite possibly Nerve is a really good movie. I actually want to rewatch that and review it at some point, because I actually like that film. It's a really enjoyable film. But they could have made this a thrill ride, or a bizarre, but no, they simplified this up, and I think that's what I like about this movie, as it's simple. It's not all of a sudden this guy is to be hunted by the fact that oh, he didn't get his list done. Oh no, not the list of things. But anyways, here's the bizarre thing. It seems like some people in this movie, what they kind of do, are almost close to crimes, and nobody's going to jail for anything. That's the problem I have in this movie. It's dude, shouldn't this guy be in cuffs? Shouldn't this guy be in prison? Shouldn't this woman be in prison? No? I'm confused. But, I guess people are just no, we're gonna press charges because I guess I guess we're just that nice of a people, I guess. I don't know, it's weird. But so anyways, the main teeing it up of this movie is we have a guy named Brett who seems to have, seemingly everything kind of going his way. Girls like him, schools want to accept him, and sometimes his parents just are nitpicky as F, but, when also looking at it, this guy gets to drive a nice car. This guy gets to drive around in a nice car, but still, this, I'm sure this kid goes to a nice school, and, this guy is probably never, done, probably, man, if this kid is, the way he is for high school. Because a lot of it just breaks down with he didn't get certain, he didn't get to decide a bulk of his life. He didn't get to decide a bulk of his life. Well, just, you're young. You're young. Just wait till, you have to start to make, actual hard decisions. But also, we have this kid, bizarrely, who all of a sudden just is this trending machine that is to just do this one video, and all of a sudden, well, bow, things are, popping off for him consistently. And so, it starts to get, PR guys, on his coattails, and all of a sudden, colleges are wait a minute, maybe we were actually interested, but we're still gonna make this guy jump through one more hoop, because that's how life is. There's some times where you'll get a good opportunity for something, let's just say cryptically, but like they still want you to still jump through another hoop where you're just like, like, really? But like you'll jump through that hoop, you'll probably have to like eat some along the way and eat some crow and whatever, and so that would probably happen. But then also you could just be like, you know what, maybe this thing just may not be working out. Maybe you need to go somewhere else and just be uh like in a happier space or a happier place. Because that's what the F-it list is all about, really. Just you finding your, like, I'm going to pump the brakes. I'm going to just realize that, like, yeah, these things are starting to pile up, but, like, if I keep going the way I'm going, like, I am just going to just drive myself into a wall on purpose. Because, yeah, things aren't going the way you would like them to go. So, but anyways, so here is the teeing up of this movie. So a kid is to go on and to pull a prank with his friends, eventually to go and try to change a bunch of students' grades to all A's to just kind of get them by and let them graduate. And so all of a sudden they are to accidentally set their high school on fire, which all of a sudden has this guy's life, Brett, like completely flipped all the way around, where everything seems to be going his way, to now all of a sudden the things that were going are just like, we're gonna put this on pause, we're gonna put this on hold right now, because yeah, I like, because of this being like in our awareness, like, yeah, we're just gonna put everything on hold right now. Like, eventually you're gonna have to like learn, like you're gonna have to learn a thing or two about what you did. You're gonna be in timeout, life timeout. And so Brett is just like, okay, I will take that time. I will take that time out, and I will go and I will like be in my pool. And so all of a sudden, like, his parents are just like, row row row, and like you need to realize the consequences of all the things that you just did. And Brett is like, well, technically everything that I did was not my real, true, legitimate choice. Like, everything that I did was something that you wanted, not what I wanted. And so eventually it takes Brett just eventually pulling off this like Jerry Maguire, like sending some video out to the ether of things, not realizing that it was going to be beyond his group's viewing. All of a sudden, Brett is to have like a decent amount of hits. I say decent amount of, like, compared to my channel and how it's going, like, decent is an understatement. But uh, things can turn around. Things could happen. Life doesn't have to be a rainy puddle, let's just say. So, or maybe you can just try to live a happier life. Try to live a happier life. So, anyway, advice? No, I'm not here to do that. So, I'm not a doctor or anything. So, moving on. Who am I to say a lick of anything? So, check out my life stories on both of the channels that I've had, and like either this one or the other gaming channel that I had. Kind of some truths, but still. Anyways, so spin a yarn about that. Do a movie about that. You got a billion other movies coming out. So pushing on. But anyways, so this kid eventually is to realize that this thing has gone viral and exploded, and so everybody's like, "Yeah, I want to do this effort list too." Like, because really, one kid just says it, and it's on the tip of everybody's tongue. Like, yeah, I wish I would just say "F it" for one day, and just chillax and whatever, and just kind of like just really just decompress and like just kind of like think about what my like real true like next step will be if options were unlimited, because it seems like this kid eventually is to put this whole list, and like this list of stuff to do feels like, yeah, I had so many already unlimited options to do any of these things, because I can feel that like easily any number of them could easily get accomplished. And I'm just like, so. But eventually, these kids all cling on to Brett, and eventually all decide, "Hey, man, I want to do the same thing. Like, I want to like put my middle finger up and just like go on and like follow this guy and kind of like follow him onto his path of just going like, hey, man, let's take a breather." So like I get people like they want to vent and they want to finally just get something off their chest, and like one person is to be able to do that in this movie. But I would say that that moment in this movie where somebody is to maybe quite possibly like vent and get something off their chest, they honestly do it in a very cringe like way, where this kid is like, "Hey man, I have an effort list, and here's what my true effort list is. Like, hey, like let me pass this to you and see how you feel about it, and hopefully you give me the thumbs up and you say that like everything between us is hunky dory." And I'm like, ugh, I'm like, that is so cringe. I don't like that in this movie. Like, dude, like, shout it out to the freaking rooftops. Like, it seems that this kid, uh, parents and such or whatever is what he mentioned, but still, I'm like, shout it out to the rooftops if like that's what the effort list is for. But yeah, so like all of a sudden, like Brett is to eventually like get one thing off of his effort list. It seems that eventually Kayla is to attach herself onto Brett, and Kayla is to accomplish something off of her effort list with Brett. And it seems like they had gotten closer because of this whole list. And so, but eventually the cops get involved. Eventually, a principal gets involved, and eventually a PR guy gets involved and say, "Hey, man, how much money can we make off of this? Like, how can we give this guy like $5,000 to $10,000 worth of merchandise for him to just be holding and wearing and whatever, so he can make money off of this whole thing?" Because when watching like a movie like People You May Know, uh, realizing that that like ends up in the exact same kind of way of which that this thing goes into, where a guy just like starts posting photos, and all of a sudden everybody's like, wow, like I need to like just add this guy on Facebook and see what he has to post, and like just buy all of his bizarrish products for some reason, because this guy is just so friendly and so nice, I guess. But eventually we find the guy eventually like when he like fakes it, all of a sudden he starts making it. Like he starts as like, hey man, I'm with a celebrity and I don't know what's going on, this makes no sense, I'm kind of confused. But go ahead and check out People You May Know. I think it was the 2017 movie. I reviewed it, but I'm not trying to pitch any movies that I reviewed here. I'm trying to pitch this one film that I'm already reviewing now. So the effort list. So eventually it gets to. It seems that people like all eyes are on this guy, and so everybody's like, "Man, this guy's an innovator. Like this guy is just like he did like a one in a million thing, and we have to all like cater to this guy for bizarrely just like lightning in a bottle. Like so, like he did it, so we're just gonna like everybody just clamor onto this guy And then all of a sudden stuff where doors might have been closed all of a sudden is open now. And then like this guy Brett, like really like everything was always like you like Brett could complain about like his like every little bit of like things that he could have complained about, but when all and really truly of everything, Brett's life was honestly easy. Like in this movie, I'm like, Brett's life is like, yeah, like Brett's life is probably pretty easy. Like, yeah, maybe not, maybe school might be difficult, but like this guy probably didn't like. Maybe he had like a mental like a mental struggle throughout this, but like where like I may have gone into an opposite rung of things with the way of which that I led my life, uh but yeah, but it's like Brett's life was always like an easy thing. It was always easy for things to eventually just work out in the end, or Brett like always had like something that was already just like, hey man, like I'm right here, where like Brett is like, oh yeah, I guess I could go after that thing, or I could do this because it's like basically like come over here and get all up in this, and Brett just chickens out, I guess. So now going into this, so let's just go into spoilers. I teed it up, but otherwise I kind of just I tried to tee it up, but I'm like, I'm just gonna go into whatever, like, cause F it, F it, man. Like, so this review is going to be reviewed the way it is, and I hope people like it. But and this might be some sob story, and people might just be like, "Oh, boo hoo for you! Your life didn't turn out the way you wanted it to. Grow up, whatever." So let's grow into the spoiler version of this movie because it's about time to go into that coveted time yet again to go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about the time you need to spoil this movie. So very beginning of this movie, we have Brett who is to wake up and realize that, hey, it seems like there might be burglars in my pool. So Brett is to wake up and put on some bizarre looking slippers, put on a robe, and all of a sudden, like, I guess this guy is like some smart home. Wow, your life is hard. Where like there's bizarrely some like voice response system that never happens, I don't think, ever again in any part of this movie. But again, this guy's life is hard. So to a point of a voice has to tell him what's going on in his home. So like hopefully that voice doesn't also wipe your patukas either. Anyways, these people have worked hard for what they've gotten, so we'll cut them some slack. So Brett is to go in a goofy robe and go out there with a bat to see if there's some burglars that are at his pool. And so Brett is to find out instead that it's just his friends who all knew that Brett was going to be home alone. And so they decided, hey man, we're going to just chillax by your pool and probably throw a party because we know that your parents are going to be home in a certain amount of hours. So we're just throwing a pool party. And so they throw a pool party and eventually they get away with it. And so eventually that lends to immediately have Brett meet Kayla at this pool party as he's goofily wearing this robe. But it seems like Kayla's like, guy in a horrible looking robe. Man, I just want some of that. Because that's what happens in films. So pool party is over, and so the parents make their way home, and so Brett is like, hey, like great, and so the very next day, Brett's parents are like, oh man, like I can't wait to know every single college that Brett has been accepted to, because evidently Brett had filled out like numerous things for like 7 different colleges, and so both Jerry O'Connell, which I really like Jerry O'Connell. He does a lot of like animated stuff. Like I think he did like Superman at one point, and so both Kristen and Jeffrey are, of course, Brett's parents, I believe. I could be wrong, but anyways, so Jeffrey and Kristen are just like, okay, like we can't wait for these big like elite colleges to see every single acceptance letter from like Yale, Harvard, any other elite big school, Magnum cum laude, whichever. And so Brett is to eventually like start like notching out every single one of these acceptance things. And so Jeffrey's like, yeah, but then Jeffrey's like, well, hey, did you make it into Harvard? And so Brett is to hear that he's on a waiting list. Oh my god, bust out the tears. Bust them out, everybody. Bust them. Just really start, just like try to like tear them out of your eyes, the tears that are to come. Because Jeffrey, Brett's father, is like, you're on the waiting list? Oh my god. So, like, hey, 6 out of 7 isn't bad, right? Like, think of the batting average that, like, that would have to be. And Brett is like, well, yeah, it's 6.7.7, and so Jeffrey's like, yeah, exactly. Like, man, that's that math brain working, but not working hard enough to get into Harvard, I guess. Like, so all of a sudden, like, Jeffrey and Kristen, these weird parents, are going out of their way to think, like, well, maybe we can talk to the people that are in admissions for Harvard. Like, we know them as good friends. So maybe we can, like, butter their biscuit and figure out some way that we can just, like, get to them. Like, get them to just, like, be on the side of, like, man, like, I just thought it was a mistake that Brett is not in our Harvard school. Heaven forbid that he has numerous other options in his life, but that's not good enough for his parents, because his freaking parents have, like, basically decided every single thing for Brett for his entire life, and so Brett has never had to make one lick of any decision in his life. But his life has been hard because he's done things that he didn't actually want to do, like play clarinet and not play basketball, or like do really tough, hard classes because they were gearing him up to just like, man, you got to just be this like genius baby for whatever reason. So Kristen is even like mentioning to her husband, well, this guy who is to be like the admissions, who's Gary Brooks, like maybe I can offer him like a one night stand if he'll like accept our kid. And Jeffrey's like, well, are you sure that we should do something like that? And Kristen is like, I think we have to. And so Jeffrey goes off to this Barry Brooks guy to just like offer him like his wife. And Barry's like, oh my god, how dare you offer me that? Well, this whole conversation I'm going to completely just say never happened, and I am just appalled by you just giving me this, and I am going to still try to get Brett in this school, believe me, because I desperately want him here, but on a waiting list. And so, but Jeff is just like, well, okay, like, I understand, but still, maybe? Like, still, like, trying to think, like, Jeffrey is thinking that Barry is, like, coming up with some kind of, like, but, like, maybe let me give you a little text afterwards kind of thing. It's like, no, that's not gonna happen. And so, like, Jeffrey just walks off. He's just like, but maybe, like, Barry's like, get out of here. So, so Brett now having to deal with the scorning of 6 out of 7. Oh my god, not a perfect, because this kid has to be perfect. So, like, it's kind of like Chris Evans and Not Another Teen Movie all over again, where, like, the parents give him a cake for, like, going to Princeton or not going to Princeton or whatever the heck that was in that movie. But, anyways, so, pushing on. So, Brett is to eventually just like be with his friends, and like one person spouts out the word F it, and then like Brett is like, yeah man, like I think a lot of us just have always wanted to say it, but like they never really just finally just like really go that extra mile. So like because Brett has to bizarrely be like the coolest kid in this movie, and they kind of tailor make certain scenes to make Brett look really cool, and I don't like that about this movie, where all of a sudden the women want him and the men want to be him. Ah, like that kind of cliche-ish like thing, where it's like, man, like if this guy was like a homeless person or whatever, like no one would care. But anyways, so because there actually is a homeless guy that Brett gives money to. And like one of the kids, I think, bizarrely say that this homeless guy has some like bizarre strategy that he's working over, like he's trying to work people over or whatever. It's bizarre. So, anyways, we eventually find out like this homeless person is actually like basically in the same kind of shoes as, or was in the same kind of shoes as Brett, but eventually this guy had a like mental breakdown or whatever, brain fart, and just like threw it all away, I guess. So, but anyways, so Brett is to go on and eventually meet up with Kayla at school, and Kayla is to like send Brett some bizarre notification of where she is, and Brett is like, "Oh, hey, cool, nearby notifications, great." So I'm gonna get probably pinged like 50 bajillion times when when we're at school because everything is nearby everything. Okay, so just making jokes. So we push on in this film to eventually have Brett go to his school, and they're doing this like graduation thing where they're having this bonfire, and like these people are bringing in these things to just kind of like have fun with, and the security guard is like, because security guards just do after hours stuff, I guess, for this school. So the security guard is like, hey man, I'm letting you do this bonfire at the school. I'm letting you bring in whatever the heck you're going to bring in, but I don't want anybody falling. I don't want anybody to get hurt because then I'm responsible for that. So, uh, so eventually like there's some kids that I think like some of these scenes in this movie are easily forgettable, like, and I'm not going to spend the time like getting into a lot of forgettable scenes that are just to easily try to transition us or for us to like understand people more in this movie, which I don't think you need to have that, but it's really just making Brett look really cool. So moving on. So uh Brett is to with his friends while the security guard is distracted with what they're doing outside. Brett and his boys are trying to break into school, so this is breaking and entering basically to try to get into this school to try and change Ferris Bueller style, because while I was watching this movie, it felt like very Ferris Bueller ish for some reason. Like, we have this guy that doesn't give an F, and like he's narrating to people all this kind of stuff and whatever. So, but anyways, eventually we'll have our Jerry Maguire moment where Jerry Maguire, like in his movie, had to like send this like memo to a bunch of people like, hey, yeah, I gotta like finally like say everything that everybody's ever wanted to say in this firm, and like everybody's like, yeah man, that paper, and then like that guy's lost his mind. So because it'll happen, you'll get that like the same kind of sides of two things where people are like, dude, this guy lost his mind. Like, hey man, pat you on the back for this one. Like, you'll get those kinds of things. So hopefully, eventually, everyone will get those kinds of things. But anyways, so pushing on. So the kids are to go into the school and try to change the grades of every single thing of this school. Like Ferris Bueller did it from a home like decades ago, but like these guys have to purposely go into the school to change the grades. And so all of a sudden, one kid is to try to exit out of this way to sneak into the school, and he is to hit a gas pipe or a gas thing to create a gas leak. So all of a sudden, we bizarrely have one kid with a lot of rubbers on him that is all of a sudden like trying to get all the gas into these rubbers, and I'm just like, how is that going to stop anything? Like, dude, you need to come up with like, I don't know how many times I would see schools bizarrely have tape. Like, I would see just a ton of schools with a bunch of tape bizarrely in places. But I guess this school has none of that. Like, with this high-end budget that this school probably has, because I'm sure, like, this seems like a lot of, like, rich people. In all brutal honesty, I could be wrong about that assumption, but it doesn't seem like a cheap end like school in all brutal honesty. But anyways, so these guys all decide, dude, we're just gonna get out of this school because eventually certain guys are starting to get sick from the gas fumes, and so they're like, dude, we're just gonna get out of here, and maybe we'll call the cops or someone else is gonna have to forcibly, because eventually Brett is to eventually start doing the math when he is to get out of the building. He's like Sherlock Holmesing it. He's like, okay, well, considering the weather that is outside, the temperature that is to be dropping, and the just the temperature, and all of a sudden the gas is going to start just fuming all the way throughout this entire school, and all it's going to take is one little spark that is just going to just have this whole entire school just explode. And so all of a sudden, like, all the kids are just like, yeah, I don't think that's gonna worm. Yeah, Brett, I think you're just overthinking worm. You know what, Brett? Like, I think that you probably have something worm there. So Brett and all the kids are just like, oh my god, we are so effed. We're so effed. We're so effed with it. Yes, we are. So, coincidentally, all of a sudden, after this whole debacle of burnt down school, it seems that these two detectives are to go to Brett's home, and bizarrely, like, we, I guess, had run out of money in this movie somewhere, because these detectives are questioning this kid in his own home. They don't book him, Dano. They don't take him down to the precinct. They don't interrogate him. They don't nothing. Like outside of this guy's home. And I'm like, what if he was to just be like, well, yeah, I'm also going to confess that I murdered 12 people. Now I'm going to run out of my home, and you guys are never going to see me again. Like, that's what, like, putting him into a precinct and kind of putting the cuffs on him and, like, trying to, like, squeeze him for information is. But, like, these detectives, I guess, are just chillax because they're like, well, this kid probably didn't do anything wrong because I guess the school didn't press any charges whatsoever for these kids. Because I guess these kids had so much promise, enough to not press charges and to just, like, but eventually they are going to put the boots to these kids anyways, because I'll get to that. So, these detectives are like, hey man, I coincidentally found a photo from a camera that is to show Brett and only Brett, because this camera had to go out of its way to zoom in only on the main character of this movie, coincidentally. And so the detectives are like, yeah, we found you and a picture of only you. So, like, I want to know if you had, like, culprits with you. I want to know if you had anybody doing this with you. Because it seems like it would have had to have taken, like, 12 million kids to come in here and pull off what you pulled off. And so Brett is like, no, 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 no. I did it by myself. And so afterwards, when the kids are like, yeah, man, like, he stuck up for me, 1,000 views. 1,000 views. So, uh, so Brett is to say like, "Hey man, I'll whatever. I'm going to take the rap for this." And so the detectives are like, "Well, okay, kid. Like we interrogated you at your own home, and that was freaking weird for me." But anyway, so the cops like walk off, and there's no cuffing, there's no nothing. It's just like, I guess the school isn't pressing charges. So eventually, like, Brett is to all of a sudden, I guess people are to get word, even these schools, and every single one of these schools are all deciding like, yeah, I'm gonna reject this kid now, with the exclusion of one that was Harvard that was on the waiting list anyways. So bizarrely, like, Brett's parents are just like, but that Harvard though, like, maybe that'll be the one in, even with all this thing, all of these things, like going on, maybe Harvard could still be a shoe in, because these parents are just so optimistic. So, uh, so eventually, right at this moment, Brett is just like, man, like, my life is just going in the dumpster, and I'm just so, just like, ah. That so Brett just goes and does a video talking about, you know what, like, I just want to make an effort list, and you know what, like, I don't want to go to school anymore, and like I just want to just uh no longer do clarinet because I never wanted to do clarinet. I wanted to do basketball instead. And boo hoo hoo. And so this kid, like I want to make my own decisions and I want to be my own person, and like I also want to like be in a band, and I want to like go and have a girlfriend, which, like, options are fairly easy for this kid for this thing. And so Brad is like, yeah, man, like, and I want to kiss this girl that I've loved since the 5th grade, and it's so and so girl, Kayla. And but wait a minute, I already did that. And like he's like so confident and so like, yeah, like I did it, like kind of throwing it in bizarrely his friends' faces. Like I would have been like, yeah, so what? Like, yeah, you're cool. Like you have to be cool about this because like this is a whole Jerry Maguire moment where like people were all gonna say that this guy was cool anyways, but he's gotta throw that extra shade and like, yeah, I already did one thing off of my it list, so because Brett is to eventually be at a party with Kayla, and so Kayla is like, hey, like uh or like immediately when this whole like effort list is to go out, and like Brett is kind of just burnt out anyways because the whole school getting burnt down, and so Brett is to go and kiss Kayla at this party, and bizarrely, coincidentally, while kisses are to be had, Kayla's boyfriend is to bizarrely show up for only one part of this movie and then never to be seen again. And he's just to like cement his flag of just like, hey man, kisses are being had, and like I know about it because I just have Kissdar or Kiss Radar, and so I gotta interrupt this. And so Kayla's boyfriend goes into this party, and Brett's friend Clint is to be like, hey man, you weren't invited to this party. It's like, well, my girlfriend was invited to this party, so I can be here. So Kayla and her boyfriend go off, and Brett is like, "Oh no, I can't submit my love." But like Brett is already just burnt out anyways. So once this whole like effort list hits, like we immediately have people that are like, "Yeah, man, I want to do my effort list," and so immediately we have Kayla who's like going with Brett to just like, "Yeah, like I have an effort list too. Like the one thing that I want to do is I want to go and I want to just start." Just destroying my mother's ex-boyfriend's car because I guess maybe like this like guy did something wrong with this with this girl, and so like her daughter is getting back at her like bizarrely. So Kayla's to go out and just like take a bat to this guy's car, just wailing and beating on it, and so eventually, like after 2,000 hits of this car, eventually they're like, "Hey man, is that your car?" Because obviously, this parking lot is very like limited with cars to see people getting hit by. Like it's right out in the open. Like it's obviously for like camera angle purposes, so that way they can like shoot it at all angles fairly easily. But so this girl is like taking it out on this car, and so they end up running off, and so the guy just runs off just at the last second. She's like but like I guess he doesn't press charges either because I guess he's like, well, I think I deserve that. I don't think I'm gonna go and press charges on this girl because she'll just go to juvie what anyways. So like this is just how this movie just pans out, luckily enough. So so anyways, Kayla is to almost kind of be concerned that maybe she might go to jail after this, and Brett is like, well, yeah, like I guess I didn't think about that. Kayla's like, yeah, you didn't think about that. And so like Kayla is supposedly sleeping at a friend's house, and but it seems that everything like went okay the very next day, and so Kayla releases a video saying like, well, hey, like I did one thing off my effort list and I felt really good about it, and so hopefully Brett, the thing that goes good for you the next day will be going good, because Brett now has to go and talk to the principal. Good God, I didn't realize I was going to take so long already talking about this. Let me pause here and let me reset also. So uh, consistently these parents are trying to like win over like everyone and grease people's wheels, and even once we get to this principal where their parents where Brett's parents are right there, they're like, hey, like how much money is it going to take for us to maybe like win you guys over, and like how many nails are we going to have to put into boards, so to speak, to like have this thing just kind of brushed away. And the principal is like, well, Principal Baird is like, well, it's going to take a little bit more than just a thing of nails and whatever, just like just make this go away. And they're like, oh. So the principal is just like, well, you know what? We could probably just like take the whole like burning down our school and probably just like just shove that under the rug. It's like we have insurance and all kinds of things, and like and we can't just have a kid just go to prison. Heaven forbid he learns his lesson or anything like that. So yeah, so and so Brett is like, okay, but like, could I graduate, get my diploma, and all kinds of things? And principal's like, yeah, about that. And they're like, what? Like the parents are like, what? So the principal is to mention that this kid is not to get his diploma, and so it's like, well, like meaning that like what, like he's not going to go to his like graduation ceremony, like they're going to withhold his diploma from him. Like I'm sure this guy probably had like a 4.0 grade average anyways, so like what was he, like a couple of credits like shy of getting his diploma, so he probably went right into like night school and then just got his GED anyways, or any number of other things. Like he could have gone to just take the GED test and pass that and just like dude, I didn't really need high school. So, because what happened was they weren't going to let him graduate because of the whole effortless thing that went viral. And it's like, okay, so this kid was already just like burnt out anyways, and so he did this one thing that went viral, and so like the school is just like, well, like I guess this kid didn't like learn his lesson or have a video that mentioning that he learned his lesson or whatever, and so like since this kid was just spouting out whatever like and it went viral, I guess we can't like condone that. So because eventually like Brett is to forcibly tell his parents about the effort list, and like his mother immediately goes to like, wait a minute, so you like after all this like rigmarole going on here, like you did a list about all the women you wanted to sleep with? And so Brett is like, no, and so he explains the effort list, and they're so like, oh, and so like the principal's like, yeah, like we're not gonna have you graduate. So Brett decides that what he's going to do next is just go onto his pool and just lay into this big inflated thing to just like relax and just chillax. And so his parents are like, oh no, you're not going to just relax here in this pool. Like, you need to think about what you did. You need to think about like what you're going to do next with your life decisions and blah, 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 blah. And so like this kid is like, well, like none of these decisions were made like for me. Like if anything, me just putting a flush on my life, I guess, was something that I probably needed. And and so like Jeffrey, like Brett's father, gets so upset that he just starts like trudging into the water. And so Jeffrey's like, I know what you're doing. It's like you're pulling off the Dustin Hoffman like thing, and you are no Dustin Hoffman kid. Like if anything, like you need to learn about what, or you need to like learn what you have done, and blah 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 blah. So the kid is just like more and more just like, dude, I'm just gonna go into this water and sink further in. I just like, bruh, like so it eventually gets to the point of like Brett just going like, you know what, I am just gonna go and just go on a road trip to like the mountains somewhere, and both Brett's parents like, what are you doing? Like you need to learn about what you did. You need to basically be on a lifetime out right now. And so Brett is just like going off with, of course, his parents' car and nice cars, of course. And so Brett is to make his way to the mountains, and he's to text all of his friends, and his friends are bizarrely like, "Hey man, like I'm gonna come with you, but I'm gonna bring every bit of like school supplies that I've ever had in my life," because Brett goes there, and so everyone makes the consensus that if Brett is not going to school, they're not going to school. And so everybody takes every bit of school supplies that they've ever had and not donate it to a needy kid. No, they just all just put it into some place and burn it all with a middle finger symbol to be symbolic, to just say like, well, hey, if anybody else is going to go to school, like they're not going to get these supplies. They could have donated all of it, but like they could have done the right thing, but I guess who cares, right? So because these kids just have uh, school supplies to burn. So eventually, while this whole thing is popping off, with them burning things and symbolizing and whatever. So Brett is to eventually have one of his best friends saying like, "Hey man, like I know I had an effort list, but you know what? I have a real effort list." And so, hey man, I want you to be the first one to see this because you're the coolest guy. And so Brett is to take this list and be like Mr. Zero cool at this point, because gotta make this guy look so good and have everyone bizarrely just love him, and to the point of like 1,000 views on this guy's rambling or ranting video, which heaven forbid anybody get that kind of numbers anywhere through any number of things. So Brett is to look at this effort list and be like, yeah, man, like, this sounds like a really cool effort list. And the kid's like, yeah, like, I just want to, like, eventually just shout it off to the rooftops. And, like, we can kind of all tell exactly what this kid is talking about. Like, they try to, like, skirt around it, or they try to just really talk about this, like, in a cryptic, like, sense, but we know like, so why doesn't this guy be open with the one person that he has already said what this was? Like, it makes no sense to bizarrely have to talk about this in such a cryptic like sense. I guess maybe they were going into this like thinking maybe like this might offend somebody, so we're gonna try to just cryptically say it, but it just seems weird. But anyways, like, I overall just like the message of this movie, but there's just some goofy things that I have to talk about. So, and I'm taking almost a freaking hour doing it. Good God, I thought that this review would be done so quickly, but I guess I'm wrong. So, now it's time to really push on. So Brett is to seemingly have this like the whole like the first like effortless go viral, and so all of a sudden like a PR guy is like calling Brett and like, hey man, like, I'm a PR guy, like I'm like Jasper something, or like Jasper Zim. Like, that doesn't seem like a name made up right off the bat, with a number of other people's names. So Jasper is like, hey man, I'm a PR guy, and it seems like this thing is going viral. Maybe he like emailed him or whatever. So Jasper's like, hey man, I need to give you like $5,000 to $10 or $5,000 to $10,000 worth of merchandise, and I need to like get you like a sponsor and all kinds of things. Like, you need to get monetized with this whole thing. Like, yeah, because 1,000 views would immediately just say that somebody needs to instantly be monetized, and a PR guy is just at the beck and whim of this person. Yeah, it just instantly works out that way. Maybe in this movie, but not in even YouTube. So, okay. So, and so Brett is like, oh man, like, so I can have this thing like all like, so Brett is almost kind of fighting like the whole like, well, like maybe this could really just work out, so I don't even need to go to Harvard. Maybe I can just like continue like championing this whole like effortless thing, and just like, and Jasper's like, hey man, a lot of people probably might come and go, but there's probably a lot of people that are gonna like see you as a martyr. Like, man, this is like lightning in a bottle, and we gotta like really go full force with this whole thing. And like, sponsors are lining up to just like want to just give you things. Like an like, as if this is like some like professional wrestler or some like pro athlete that this like bizarrely like sneaker deals are in the work, and like this guy is gonna get pushed to be in like commercials, and like just be like, ah, look, I have like uh strawberry jam, whatever the heck, like, hey guys, effortless but strawberry jam. Goofy but interesting. So so pushing on into this, so further on, we find out that while conveniently Brett is with his sponsor, that the cops are to come to Brett's home and to tell him, hey man, while this whole effortless was to go on, one person was to perform a crime because of the effort list. And I'm like, so, like, what is this going to be like Stu and Billy from Scream 1, where all of a sudden they heard about this Effort list and they performed a crime, and so all of a sudden that's coming back on the people that originally did this Effort list? And so, like, the police are to tell this guy, like, hey, like, don't comment on anything, don't like anything, don't, like, do anything on social media, basically. And the PR guy and a number of uh, Brett's friends are like recording this, and they're like, "Hey man, like this is even gonna like explode this even further to push that like you can't just say F it to these detectives because you have to do what they say." And like what they're saying is all of a sudden like because this thing has gone so big that like you're like channeling people to do things, and that's not true. They just like took this thing and misconstrued it and whatever, and so like they're doing what they're doing, so pushing on. Uh so eventually uh all of a sudden we get to the point of Harvard. So all of a sudden uh the like big high upper person of Harvard is calling Barry, of all people, the guy that was to get offered like a woman. And so this lady's just like, "Hey man, this effort list is going huge, and it seems like this kid is on the waiting list to come to this college. And so like we need to just like speed this guy's like this acceptance thing right off the bat." But then all of a sudden they're just like, "But let's have him do an essay." So I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, he can be accepted in because this guy is like a one of a kind like thing, but you still have to have him jump through a hoop of like writing an essay to get him in your college, even though he was technically already on the waiting list. So have him do a new essay to get into this college. Okay, so and so now all of a sudden, like the people of Harvard, like Barry is coming to Brett and like, "Hey man, essay, like go and do an essay and you'll get in." And Brett is like, "Wow, that's great. It's great." So all of a sudden now, like both Jeffrey and Chris know their hooks back into their son if they didn't have them already like just preparing for hooks being latched on. So now both the parents are like, "Well, okay, like we're gonna go and we're gonna like have this guy that is going to come in here and like tell you exactly word for word what to say, and like tell you how to pitch this to Harvard and all this kind of stuff." And so all of a sudden this guy comes in and tells like Brett exactly word for word what he should do and say and whichever. And so but like this guy is still leaving it up to Brett to fill out this essay. So like his parents are consistently asking like Brett, it's like, "Well, hey, when are we gonna get this essay? Can we see a rough draft of it? Can we get a little piece of it? Can we hear a little sonnet of it?" And Brett is like, "Give me time, like give me like a day, like to kind of come up with what I want to like say about this, and let me like make up my own decision." And so Brett is to finally like do the paper of this, and he is to mention like, "Hey, like as like the from the Jack Black movie, like the Orange County movie, like so like he was filling out an acceptance or an essay to one school and whatever, talking about his like writing and whatever." So and so Brett kind of, it felt like the same thing to me. So Brett is to go into this speech about like some things that he have learned along the way and mistakes that he has made and blah blah blah. And so but eventually, excuse me, so eventually this seems at first that like Brett is going to give in and conform and just be like, "Yeah, I made so many mistakes and now I'm just going to be begging and pleading at your footsteps to just be in this school." But no, like Brett is like, "You know what, like F it. Like, I will not accept, like, you accepting me into your school if I have to fill out an essay to get in here. Like, no, thank you, but no, thank you. So, Brett sends that out to the ether, and everybody's clamoring onto it. They're like, everybody's reading this thing, and it gets like 10 million looks at, or whatever the heck, like, because he didn't do a video bizarrely for this one. He just did this paper, and everybody's like bizarrely 10 million liking it or something. I don't know. So all of a sudden, Brett is to have his mother come in and like, you know what, like, son, like, it was so hard for us to get a child, and then immediately once you came along, like, I think we just put the gas on, like, we just really just, like, I guess we made a lot of mistakes, and like, if anything, like, I'm sorry, and like, you're learning and I'm learning, kind of thing. It's like, hey, like, people make mistakes along the way when they have a child, like, it happens. Like, I'm sorry, this is not like the same equivalent of like you accidentally like not holding your baby the right way, and my neck. Like, no, it's not like like, these parents were just like controlling this kid's seemingly entire life, where every small minute decision like this kid didn't have. But there's plenty of times where this kid was lucky enough to have friends and have parties and have a number of things that this kid could have easily had a girlfriend. This kid could have easily had like everything that he wanted out of life, but like, it just didn't, like, this kid lived in regrets, let's just say. So if anyways, like, we have this one somber moment with Brett and his mother, and so eventually, like, Brett is to send out this paper, and his parents are completely fine with it. They're like, hey, like, it's your decision, man. Like, it's okay. So, really, what ends up happening is everybody's like, 10 million hits on this thing? Like, PR guy's like, man, this is like lightning in a bottle. Like, you are just this like Leonardo da Vinci, or like of current time. Like, man, everybody's just flocking to you, evidently, like flock of seaguling to you right now, and like, this seems crazy, this seems insane. And so all of a sudden, like, Brett is like, yeah, man, like, it's great that this is all happening, but like, considering you are my PR guy and whatever, like, hey, man, like, how about you do one thing for me? Because it seems that Kayla is to eventually leave Brett and eventually go off to some place that she doesn't even know how to speak the language of, and eventually just go off, I guess, to like, do, I guess, maybe one of those like foreign exchange kind of thing, where she used to like go off to some other country and uh, and get schooling from there. And so eventually Brett decides to go after Kayla, and like, basically even to the point where like, she's going on a boat to like go where she's going, and Brett is bizarrely like going and swimming after her. Like, I kind of felt like a Will Smith like Hitch kind of moment coming from here, where all of a sudden he was gonna have this like big huge speech about, he's like, I've been falling, and like, and I don't know why the heck, like, I fell so hard, and like, I bruised myself, and like, whatever the heck bizarrish, like like Will Smith speech where he has to mention about him falling, and why the heck did he had to like fall for so long, and whatever. Anyways, it's a bizarre speech, but like, it's a romantic thing that I do like that movie. It's a guilty pleasure. But anyways, it's not reviewed on the channel, but like, if people like want it to be reviewed, I guess I'll go into it. But it's a while ago movie, but I like it. It's an enjoyable film. So anyways, so Brett is to go, and like, after probably like, I'm assuming maybe 10 feet of pure swimming, immediately Brett just gives up, because it's like, dude, the ship's too far. like I'm really lazy, even though I'm the coolest person in this movie. And so Brett all of a sudden is like, dude, I'm just gonna coincidentally just turn back. And so while Brett turns back, Kayla is back on the beach, the surface, and like Kayla before she was to went was to talk to one of these people, and she was to be like, you know what, like there's some times where I just want to say F it, and like the other woman was like, well, hey, I feel like the same thing too, like thumbs up, girl, like they have this like bizarre moment of like these two are feeling the exact same thing. So Kayla decides, you know what, I'm gonna bizarrely like get into a bathing suit right now and be with Brett as he gets from out of the water, and like they're going to have this like nice little kissing moment and whatever, and everything's just gonna work out. So I think what ends up happening eventually is like Harvard is just like no matter what Brett is gonna do, like they just want him. Like they just like are dying to get this kid in their school. And so they're gonna like move mountains for this kid. And so I think they end up just accepting him anyways. So really like yeah, like this movie just breaks down as like a happy ending to have had, and everybody's like, yeah, like we did all of our effortless things. And so like there's probably some stuff that he didn't completely 100% review throughout this whole entire movie. There's some stuff that I probably just kind of quickly just kind of like got into. Like there's a whole story about the homeless man where the homeless man was to be some la-di-da guy, but I didn't go further into that because that's like a quick thing that I kind of probably brushed under the rug. But yeah, so there might have been little bits of stories in here and there that I probably just kind of quickly ran through, but there's some stuff in here where it's just kind of like, okay, like I like the message, but other than that, it's just like it kind of feels like just a bucket list, but they're just going into an effort list, and like so like and they're like it's this movie has like a very goofy delivery of stuff, and like that's all that I have to say. But I'm gonna go out of my way to just get out of here. Hopefully people liked this movie or at least liked this review. So I'm gonna get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.